Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. We are live at 5 p.m. Pacific, that is, as every week. What am I trying to say here? It happens every week. This show happens. That's a great intro. One of my best, no question. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. This is my live show that I do here on Pros and Cons. I also have a show you might have heard of called Comic Tropes. But this is just a fun live stream where I'm going to talk to you about the comics that came out this week. I'm going to talk to you about all the biggest comic book news of the week, digest that for you. And we're going to talk about it because there are a bunch of people in the chat room. So, for instance, hello, a double salute to some early participants. Hello, Daniel. I've seen a lot of familiar names. Big Gay Dave, James Stewart. I'm not going to be able to catch you all, just to be clear, but it's lovely to have all these people. You hope that my computer doesn't explode. Exactly. Yes, that is a concern. I've always got little sort of sparklers and fireworks in the computers so that if anything goes wrong, it sort of sparks and, everything shakes. I should shake the camera, but I'm just going to shake. Why am I wearing this though? I will explain. There's a reason for it. But let's say hello. Yeah, get them sponsors, boy. Exactly. I had a sponsor on the latest episode. I turn down most sponsors. I usually get about 1 to 2 offers a day, have for years. I turn most of those down because they don't really necessarily feel like they fit for my audience, or maybe I just do some research and I don't feel like the company's that great, but I get a lot of offers. And also I don't love making ads because you have to go through this approval process, and that's just, it's not fun, and they give you all these talking points, but then they want you to write like a whole script that they approve. It's just kind of a hassle, honestly. I don't love doing it, but I do it sometimes when I think there's a decent product. And I like Star Trek. I'm not the biggest Star Trek guy in the world, but honestly, I know Star Trek pretty well. I like Star Trek quite a bit. And so yeah, there's a free-to-play MMO game, Starfleet Command. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely be willing to promote that. I've got a friend that's played that game for years, legit years. I think it's fairly fun. So I did that. And I had an idea for an opening gag. I was like, oh, maybe I'll tie the gag to the ad that I'm doing. So I got this shirt because it was supposed to get there within like less than a day. It didn't. So I didn't really do the gag. And honestly, once I started thinking about it, the gag wasn't even that funny, and it wasn't tied to the episode. It was tied to the ad. So I was just like, at the last minute, I was like, forget it. I'm just not even going to do it. What I was going to try to do, I can't do it on this chair. I was going to try to do the Riker maneuver, essentially. What's that called? Like the Riker, I don't know what you call it. But on Next Generation, actor Jonathan Frakes, actor and director, he played Riker, right? And I guess he has some back problems. So he never sat in a chair normally. You don't necessarily notice this until somebody points it out, and then you're always going to notice it. Instead of sitting in a chair, he'd walk up to it and swing his leg up and over the chair and then sit down. That's just how he always sat in it. He never sort of like, came from like this. That was never how he sat. And I was going to do that. And then I was like, it's not that great of a joke. It's not that great of a joke. Yeah, if I could, right. If I could, look at how high this chair is. There's no way, right? But you know what? Like, I was still like trying to figure it out. And while I've got a nice room to record comic tropes in, it isn't that big. And I realized I needed to have the camera back further so that I could move the chair up forward from the wall. And then I was so close that my head would get chopped off. If I angled it, like I was still kind of fuzzy and out of focus. It just wasn't enough space to get the whole gag done. So I cut it all. Yes, Beowulf is correct. Riker would have found a way. I didn't find a way. But anyway, so I bought this shirt because it was the only Star Trek shirt that was supposed to come within less than 24 hours. And then it still took 2 days. So it was just too late anyway. By the way, as long as I'm talking about Star Trek and everything, I've got like a a line of thought I'm going to go into. So I'm going to talk about myself a tiny bit before we get into like talking about comics and news and stuff like that. So years ago, my friend Vincent had a website. It was basically just a blog that he would write nerdy stuff about. And it was called therobotspajamas.com. Now it's not up anymore. So if you go look, I'm sorry, there's no website. But I wanted an outlet to write. And so I started writing for his website, and I would write an article a day for years. And I would interview some people like, Phoenix Jones, the real life superhero. And I would gather together other writers, and we'd have like themed weeks where maybe we talked about something from our past that we loved, like G.I. Joe or Transformers, something like that. Every October, for it was either 3 or 4 years, I would get a writer a day for every day of October to review a horror movie. So we got in like deep into the weeds, into some really cool ones, foreign movies or obscure stuff. It was great. It was so much fun. I loved writing for that website. And one thing I did was I did a weekly comic strip on it called Star Trek Problems. I drew in, a pretty realistic style. And I would just sort of point out the sort of tropes and fallacies within Star Trek, but it was definitely done with love. I do enjoy Star Trek. And if you Googled Star Trek Problems, you're probably going to find some of the comic strips I did, because I did like well over 100, probably like over 150 of them or something like that. So that was definitely a really fun thing that I used to like doing on that website. And since I'm talking about my friend Vincent, I'd like to plug 10 years ago or something like that. But he had an idea to make his own tabletop role-playing game. And the original idea was to make it so that you could create your own G.I. Joe characters, or make existing G.I. Joe. Like, he wanted to come up with an environment that you could do that. And it sort of like evolved. And he was like, well, maybe, you could create characters from like Schwarzenegger movies from the 80s and stuff. And I always encouraged him. I was like, Vincent, this is such a good idea, the way he described it. I was like, please let me draw, let me help like lay it out. Like, I wanted to work on this. So I'm going to add something to the stream here, because he's launching it. And it went bigger, and he came up with an idea that it's sort of like a synthwave 80s set, inspired by stuff like Miami Vice and Drive and stuff like that. So I thought, I love my buddy, and I wanted to give him a plug. So the game is called Street Wolves. It's launching early February. This is the website here, tablecatgames.com. If you go there, there's a page there where you can sign up for the mailing list, right? And if you do that for like this week only, you'll be able to get the game for 20% off, which I think is a pretty good deal. So if you like tabletop role-playing games, I cannot recommend this enough. My buddy Vincent has worked on this hard for years. He's gotten some fantastic illustrators to work on it. Like, that is just gorgeous art. There's character art, 80s themed. If you like doing stuff like this with your buddies, please at least check out this website. They've got a pretty active, Discord server on it. Hey, if I'm going to do a show like this, I might as well plug my friends now and then, right? But I think that you would like it. This is so nice to hear some of these things. Yeah. I wondered what the shirt was wearing. Yeah. I love synthwave. Then you'll like this. You really would. That looks cool. Yes. Drive wave is literally me. Drive is really me. Yeah. This is cool. A lot of work into it. Let's see. Oh, hold on. EJ says, I'm glad Starfleet Command is paying you, but that game, I feel it's disrespectful to Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future. It's kind of commercial, I guess. But I'm thinking, did Star Trek, I think you mean Lower Decks, steal any Star Trek problems? I don't think so. But I will say that if I was going to write for any TV show, I'd probably be a pretty good fit for something like Star Trek Lower Decks. Let's see. There's a question here. I lived in the DC area. Yeah, I lived there for 10 years. That's I met some great friends. Anyway, the Star Trek comic is pretty good. I'm enjoying it. A fellow Newfoundlander, I can't say it. Newfoundlander is doing some of the art within. Well, you guys know what I was getting at. Let's see. Jamila says, I'm changing up my workspace. Would you recommend your drawing lamp? I wouldn't really recommend this one, actually. It's kind of in the way. It's got this cord. I need to rearrange this workspace. And I don't know if this is a brand. It's just a ring light. And I've got like a mic arm like musicians on stage use. And you know what? I'm going to continue with plugs. Okay, so there's Street Wolves. I recommend that. TableCatGames.com, or just Google Street Wolves, and I'm sure you'll find it. But there's another thing I want to plug. My buddy Randy has a Kickstarter going. I've supported it. I think Randy makes some really good comics. Here's issue 1 of a book he made called Bullet Adventures, okay? And his Kickstarter now is almost fully done. Every Kickstarter he's done, he's always hit his goal, and he's always fulfilled it really, really fast, and he pays his artists and colorists and letters fast. So Randy is one of the good people in this industry. He makes all sorts of different comics. He's done horror and stuff, but right now he's doing a nice superhero adventure comic. This is for issues 2 and 3. And if you haven't read issue 1, you can add that to your pledge. I recommend it. It's called Bullet Adventures. So if you go to Kickstarter, look up Bullet Adventures. I wanted to plug my buddy Randy's Kickstarter, because I'm 100% confident it will get fulfilled. He knows how to do these. He's done like 5 or something like that. He knows how to deal with printers and shipping and everything. He gets it all handled, and he has already got the artwork and everything. So it's definitely going to happen. So I just wanted to plug some of those things. I know that's a lot of plugs to start the show off with. My sister here, she said that she would be in here, but I don't know if I didn't catch everybody. But anyway, tell you what, what else? Let's get started with the reviews. I'm going to look real quickly at some of the comics that I picked up this week, and then we can go into the news of the week while I ink. I'm going to ink a quick sketch I did of Casey Jones. So good. Just curious. Nice to see you. So she says I'm here. Good. I love having you here. It means a lot to me. Let me add this to the stream. Change the view to that. Yeah, I think that looks good. So great news. Saga is back, and I love this book. Sci-fi. Maybe more like fantasy, though, if I'm being honest, a little bit, because there's magic and stuff. So a little bit more like a sort of a Star Wars. And it definitely is an epic. So the name Saga is completely appropriate. It follows a family. A family, well, you know what? If you don't know Saga by now, why am I just recapping it, right? They take breaks every once in a while. Writer Brian K. Vaughan and artist Fiona Staples do, because they want to make sure that they're producing the best thing that they can. And they do. All I can say is we're at a point where we're following Hazel and her mother, who are essentially on the run, living like criminals and stuff in a world where that's at war. There's like 2 races that have been at war for millennia, essentially. And it wraps up all the other alien races. So they're hide in the cracks and crevices of society. But this one ends with a premise that this is a world of magic, and maybe Hazel's dead father could be brought back. That's an interesting twist to the story that I never thought was a possibility. And I don't know if it's a realistic possibility or not, but that sounds pretty cool. By the way, one of the best letter columns in comics. It's called To Be Continued, and they do all sorts of fun things. They have several pages of letters that the writer Brian himself answers. That's awesome. And they're having, they announced in this, a cosplay contest. So that's pretty fun. They're going to show some photos of people that are in Saga cosplay. And then there's an ad also, by the way, for this. A free graphic novel that Brian K. Vaughan did with Nico Henrichon, who was the artist. They did a great book called Pride of Baghdad. It was a true story where a Baghdad zoo had gotten bombed and a bunch of lions escaped into the city, and it follows that story, which is really interesting. Well, now they're doing some sort of adult book called Spectators, and you can read it free on Substack. That's pretty amazing. Anyway, I love this book. It's fantastic. It's adult, just to be clear, because there's sexuality and sometimes there's overt violence, but it's also pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I recommend it. I recommend it strongly. Where do I want to stack this up? I'll stack it up over here. Let's see. I think he said that this time they would accept email. I'm pretty sure that for this contest they're actually allowing email, so that's kind of cool. Let's see. Diana, lovely to have you here. And I missed picking this up last week. Oh, well, it's great, Diana. As long as I'm plugging things, Diana's fantastic. She is the continuity guru for G.I. Joe. IDW had her overseeing all their books. She's a great member of the G.I. Joe community as well as comics community. It's not my place to speak too much about this, but Diana, I'm going to plug this on your behalf, Diana. Whether she has a GoFundMe up if you want to Google her name and GoFundMe, and medical bills. And I think that we've all been there. I know I have. I'm still, just to be clear, I'm still paying off bills from when I had COVID back when that all started. Thousands, tens of thousands. It's ridiculous. Diana has some bills. She's good people. Maybe okay. Go for it. Okay. Let me get the exact website or see if there's anything. GoFundMe. I'm just seeing what happens when I yeah, if you just hit GoFundMe and Diana Davis, you can get her GoFundMe and she explains what happened. It's a really unique thing. As long as you Diana is young and everything. Okay. She had a heart attack. That does not happen much. Diana, I think you're a very healthy person. It's really scary. You know, these things happen. We have insurance and it doesn't cover it all. It's very expensive to deal with. So, you know, great person in the comics community. You know, if you have a few bucks, it can really help people out. So I'm playing that. Let's get back to comics. Yo, The Human Target. You've probably gotten sick of me talking it up each month, but it really is a special book, just to be clear. Let's just focus on the art this time by Greg Smallwood. Doing all the art, by the way. You know, pencils, inks, colors. It's all him. It's all him. And boy, does he make me care about these characters and believe in them. Christopher Chance and Tora, also known as Ice. It's a romance story, ultimately. There's a murder mystery at the core of it, but it's a romance. And boy, does he draw people with believable expressions and just draws them unique too. You know, he's not an artist where every character looks the same, which is definitely a challenge for, I think, every artist, but especially an artist that draws like monthly comics. It's a big challenge, you know? So anyway, just really good artwork that I just wanted to highlight. So the story's fantastic, but I've talked that up a bunch. Let me just point out that this artwork is beautiful. Smallwood does some really interesting things where look at how, even though it looks at first fairly realistic, I would say, that's a pretty sketchy line indicating like hair texture, isn't it? Such confidence and such economy of line work there. Such economy. Wow, a super chat. JR Films, thank you so much. Hope you're having a good week. I've been loving Human Target. I'm glad you recommended it because I wouldn't have discovered it otherwise. That makes me so happy. You know, I just want to espouse good stories. And so that's really exciting to hear. But you could learn a lot from Greg Smallwood's storytelling and his artistic choices. Look at like how subtle this goes of kind of serious, just a few lines to indicate, like look at the eyebrows shift slightly. There's just a little bit of a wrinkle indicating like the lower lip coming up. A few lines around the eyes to like indicate, sort of a tightening, adding that triangle of sadness, as they call it, and a few tears. And boy, do I find that believable as they push in. Boy, do I find that believable. And there's also some great, sort of more impressionistic stuff for flashbacks. Just really impressive storytelling. I promise, if you give this book a chance, it's going to draw you in. First 6 issues are collected in a trade paperback already. That's probably the best way to jump on if you're not there already. Smallwood is awesome. He really is something special. Really is. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Ticoblin. I mean, the color choices, like that's, very monocolor and everything, helps give it like you can easily identify it as a flashback. Whereas like these colors, and it's not the most realistic thing all the time, because like these shadows that he puts in are just hard lines. They don't follow the curve of a face. I wouldn't know how to make that convincing. But since we're speaking about colors, he does some of those things. And what it tends to do is he puts it so that like it's actually pointing your attention to the important part of that panel, like an right, or just sort of framing up Christopher Chance having fallen in the water. So there's little choices like that are very clever, very clever. How do you decide between collecting individual issues or trade paperback? Word of mouth. If I hear about it too late, I'm probably jumping on the trade paperback. If I'm hearing about it, weekly, monthly, something like that. But also, I can spend that money because I've got a show and I can justify buying more comics than probably the average person. I do admit these aren't cheap. It's $5. At best, maybe this is 30, 45 minutes of your time. It's a lot of money. I do agree. But, sometimes the trip for back a little bit better. So I don't blame that. I really wish that even if it was like the digital version costing less, say like came out a week or a month later or something, I think you should get a discount for something like that. I really do. All right. I enjoyed The Last Ronin quite a bit. So did a lot of people. It sold well, and so they've got a spinoff, and it's called The Lost Years. Let's see. Steve, thank you so much for the super chat. And says, I do trades. It is cheaper and easier to collect. It definitely is. Trades you can easily just put on a bookshelf. You don't necessarily have to worry about bagging and boarding and boxing them up. There's a lot to like about that. What does The Last Ronin do? It fills in both some of the time with the last Ninja Turtles final years, and it jumps ahead to the future because The Last Ronin ended. The original Ninja Turtles and Splinter are on, but April O'Neil and her daughter Casey are still there. As for new baby turtles. So, this title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, technically not accurate, but hey, it's branding, right? These are not teenagers. Boy, are they cute. They're all different types of turtles. 2 girls, 2 boys. Odin is really big. Let's see. Uno is acrobatic and a bit of a kiss ass to the teacher. Moja is sort of grumpy, but like defensive. And this is, I want to say Yi. Anyway, they're really interesting. They've got different personalities. They're super cute and likable. Actually, they're super cute. They really are. And then there's the actiony stuff in the back where the last remaining Ninja Turtle was like ready to give up on life, and this sort of talks about what brings him back slowly. So I do recommend it. some of the art I like more than others. Let's see. Yeah. So SL Gallant is fine. He's done a lot of G.I. Joe. It's fine. I just can't say that's my favorite. But the Ben Bishop stuff for the sort of future stuff, I like that a lot more. But that's all personal taste, isn't it? That's all personal taste. Blinick says action figures due out any day now, I'm certain. I would consider getting them, although I really only collect Donatello. Nickelodeon Rugrats crossover with Lost Years. Maybe. I didn't watch that. That was sort of, I'm too old. I don't know Rugrats, but maybe. Yeah, great question, Cheesier. Is Eastman or Laird involved? Just to be clear, the original Last Ronin was based off of a plot, an idea by Eastman and Laird. Although Eastman was much more involved, he works very closely with IDW as both an artist and a writer. He's co-writing this with Tom Waltz, who's written a lot of the Ninja Turtles stuff, and he does one page, just one flashback page. Where was it? I missed it, but there it is. So he does one page, and you know, I think he's doing like variant covers. He usually does that. There is a 30-something middle-aged Ninja Turtle SNL skit. Was there? I don't remember SNL doing that. That's interesting. It's good. I'm not going to say that it's on the same level as Saga or Human Target, but if you like Ninja Turtles, it is something new. And, you know, Ninja Turtles has been around a long time now, so it's cool to get new ideas. Ninja Turtles is pretty damn versatile, by the way. You can do, you know, action, you can do sci-fi, you can do drama. It's amazing how versatile it is for something that's, and you can do humor. Oh, yeah, let's plug that. Let's plug that. Yep. Cobbler has the cartoonist kayfabe boys being, you know, actual industry pros. They can do a lot of stuff that I get jealous of because I don't have that same access. They got Peter Laird to sit in with them, and they went page by page through the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, getting his thoughts on it. That's pretty special. I definitely recommend checking out Cartoonist Kayfabe for that episode. Pretty special. Pretty special. Sergeant Rock versus Army of the Dead is almost over. This is issue 5 of 6. I don't necessarily. I've talked about this in past weeks. I love Eduardo Risso, the artist. I feel like I just hadn't seen him in a while, so it's exciting to see him back. He's got a very unique, special style. But the thing I keep getting surprised and impressed with here is Bruce Campbell is writing this, and he's an actor. I know he's written a little stuff, but I read this, and this feels like a comic by a professional. It's paced well. The characters have accurate dialogue that differentiates them from each other. Just decisions that I'm like, wow, Bruce Campbell has written for a comic very well. And there's no co-writer that's, you know, he's like not coming up with the plot and then somebody else is formatting it. No, like Bruce Campbell wrote this. I'm just really impressed. And I would be curious now to see other things that Bruce Campbell did. I'm sure he sort of got on this because there's essentially zombies, right? Our army of the dead. Hitler and the Nazis have zombies that they can bring back their people, and they're sort of loyal, and, you know, he gets to use them again. And this issue ends with Sergeant Rock and Easy going up against a zombie-powered Hitler and Eva Braun. So I read this and I go, wow, is issue 6 going to give us sort of an alternate reality the same way Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards did? I don't know. Totally agree. Eduardo Risso is something special. Argentinian, I believe. I remember reading a comic he published when he lived in South America called The Little Vampire, and being really impressed and going like, this guy's definitely going places. And sure enough, like right after that, I think DC snatched him up for 100 bullets. And boy, did he like make his mark on that. Here's a question for me. Have you ever checked out the YouTube channel Living the Line? First of all, no. I have to admit, I've never heard of that one. They do the same thing as kayfabe, but they tackle small publishing and unique indie books. Well, good. I'm glad to see that. Great point, Diana. Yes, he is a good writer. I remember reading his autobiography and going to meet him in Boston. That's how long ago that was. I was still living in Boston. That was like maybe 2001 or something like that. And I went with artist Nate Belgard. These days, Nate does character designs for the background characters in the Invincible animated show on Amazon Prime, but he's done a bunch of comics, primarily at Image, Nowhere Men. He's done like an Adam Eve series. He's done Brit, stuff set in the Invincible world. He's close with that. Oh, thanks for confirming for me, Daniel. He is Argentinian. It's been a minute since I looked that up. Thank you. Did Risso do an alien sci-fi story? That almost rings a bell, but if he did, I don't think I read it, so I'm not 100% sure. Living the Line is a great channel. All right. I got to trust Andy because, I mean, there's a pro that's nice enough to join all of us each week. If he likes this show, obviously he's got good taste, right? You met Burbank, Diana? Oops, I had that up. I had it down. That's awesome. He's funny. He's really funny. He's a good speaker. Who will win the Super Bowl, Chiefs versus Eagles? I'm going to root for the Chiefs. I'm more of an AFC guy. But they're dealing with some pretty serious injuries and Eagles had a very definitive victory in their conference championship. So if I had to put money on it, it might be the Eagles, but I'll be rooting for the Chiefs. I think of them as a little bit more of an underdog in this one. I don't know what the spread is. I gave a shout out to your Hobgoblin video. I uploaded a Making the Hobgoblin video. Okay, very cool. Remember when you had an Ash S-Smart shirt made? That's true. Yeah, I did. For Halloween one year as an adult. I got an S-Smart shirt made, like a denim blue shirt. I was a big fan of that series of movies, the Evil Dead movies. Risso did at least one Aliens comic. Okay. I'd be curious to see that. I mean, he's a guy kind of like Mignola, who's really good at like light and dark and using shadow, and I think that works very effectively with Aliens. Very effectively. Yeah. Oh, ha! As soon as I say that, Risso's approach to panel layouts is my favorites next to Mignola. There's a bit of similarity. Yeah, if you can't trust Andy Kuhn, who can you trust, right? Moving on. Oh, and sorry, there was a question there. Is DC Horror part of their Black label, or is it earlier? I don't see anything about this that's labeled as Black label, so I think it's just its own thing. Yes, you're right. I wasn't an adult. I was in high school. You're right. I was still a teenager. Met Bruce Campbell at Wizard World Philly 2012. I got a signed photo and bumped into Stan Lee. He had a cameo in my life, just like an MCU movie. That's fun. That's great. I'm glad you got to. You know what? I don't have this in the news, but let's take a moment because I was just flipping this and I saw this ad, right? I'm going to talk about this, but I want to acknowledge another super chat. He did a book called Spaceman with Azzarello. I don't think I read that one. Darn. Are you going to any cons this year? Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on anything. You know, I don't get invited as a guest. I have to pay my own way. We're going to sidetrack from this and address this since it got asked. I'm going to talk to you about conventions and stuff. I'm probably going to go for at least one day to Emerald City Comic-Con because it's here in my backyard. You know, I'm in the Seattle area. But if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I might not go at all, honestly. Because first of all, the tickets are almost $70 for one day. That's expensive. That is really expensive. And apparently they go up like $5 in about a week. They go up $5 more. And then the guest list is really light for comics creators. Not a lot of big names. Like, yeah, like just really, really light. A few celebrities and stuff, and it's like they've got like 4 actors from Scream. I like Scream, but I go to a Comic-Con for comics. That's what I'm there primarily for. Merchandise, like a T-shirt or something. But I looked at, like, the artist alley. I looked at the not just the guests, but people that have table space. A lot of just local artists. A lot of just like people that make prints, not actual comics even. It doesn't really excite me too much. I've never really gone to buy a print or anything, and it's like when I see the people that have a table and they're selling soap, I'm like, cool. I love creativity and stuff. It's not what I'm coming to a comic convention for. So that's the kind of, I'm not super excited for it. Chiefs, Broncos fan here, and you're breaking my heart. I don't have a strong dog in this fight, folks, just to be clear. I appreciate the super chat, John. So I'll probably go to the convention. I'm really disappointed at the level of guests and how expensive it is. I don't think it's a great value, I'll be honest. And they don't have any sort of mask policy or anything like that either, which I don't think is great. Now, I just got my latest booster. I feel fairly safe, but it's not great. It's not great. I'll probably go to New York Comic-Con. I always go to that one with one of my best friends from college. He lives in New York and he loves comics too. So we usually go together. Chrissy usually goes with me. We have a good time there. That might be it, though. That might be it for conventions for me. So I flipped this over and I saw this ad. Let me talk about that for a minute. Shazam. I thought this looked fun. It still looks kind of fun. Boy, can DC not catch a break with the controversy their actors keep causing for their movies right before and as they hit. We've got all the Ezra Miller stuff with Flash, which we've talked about tons. That's a lot of baggage to overcome. And The Rock made things a little awkward with how he promoted Black Adam. Everything about like what he said was about like Superman and stuff. And it's like, okay, about whoops, little hiccup to bump into you. I hope you do go. Now, this past week, just like a couple days ago, I thought Zach Levy was, who could object to his stuff? And he goes and he starts tweeting a couple sort of anti-vax things. And it's like the timing on that, dude. You couldn't like wait until the movie came and went from theaters. And it also like, it was, someone asked him if like Pfizer was like a net evil for the world, some phrase sort of like that. And he was like, absolutely agree. And I don't like defending big pharma. I think that they rip us off. But I also think that, like the vaccine it has saved lives. And so to find out that he's against that, I was like, I'm really like, you're killing my interest because now I'm going to have that in my head right before the movie comes out. Just bad timing to get on your platform. Let's move on with some reviews. I like this one. Yeah. Real wisdom of Solomon over here. That is one of Shazam's powers. The wisdom of Solomon. And yeah, another person saying like killed my urge to see Shazam. I know. Now I have no interest. It's not great. I can separate the actor from the role in this case. I can, but it's just not great. It's not great timing. Creepshow is kind of a fun anthology horror book. it's got 2 stories every issue. The first one is sort of a riff on the portrait of Dorian Gray. I think I'm saying that one right. The second one I thought was pretty interesting in that I like the story a lot more. It's got some parents like raising their adopted daughter in the Deep South to get ready for her debut as a debutante, right? And it's creepy. It's got some sort of Junji Ito-esque body horror things going on. And of course, everything goes terrible and a bunch of people get killed. But here, the only problem I had is, and I know you're dealing with a limited amount of pages, but to make that horror hit, I think you needed to spend a lot more time having us get to know at least one of the people that get killed, because they really don't. So like the horror doesn't hit with the same impact it would if you liked at least one of the characters a little bit. It's just sort of a creepy idea. That's my only critique there. I want to get onto the news, so I'll keep going. Inferno Girl Red. Yet another book for the Massive Verse. That's the world that started with Radiant Black. As far as prices on comics go these days, this is a decent value. You can see that this is a bound book. I'm going to ballpark it at like 48 pages, I think. And it's $5.99. Now, since most comics are $4.99 for 22 pages of story, I think that's a good value. Artist Erica Durso, writer Matt Groom. It's got another sort of tokusatsu-esque, but it's sort of a mother-daughter book. Mother-daughter is a relationship I don't feel I see explored a whole lot in comics. It's a good one, worthy, like something we can usually relate to. So that it's cool. That said, while this moves at a great pace, creates a bunch of interesting characters that I'm curious about, even at like the 48 pages or whatever, it kind of ends a little bit abruptly within this. So I want more, and there's no timeline on exactly when that will come out. But I do want more. I guess that's a good thing, right? Leave them wanting more. I've heard good things about Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics run on Superman, but hadn't been reading it. I heard that the whole War World arc was really, really good. This is described as a jumping on point, and my store had this cool variant cover. I can be a sucker sometimes for gimmicks. I don't get them too often, but this shiny and embossed one looked fun. That's Superman and Metallo, which does give away a little bit like who the villain in it is, but that's okay. This is also, though, a good value. The standard version costs the regular amount, and you get 3 stories in it. You get a main story with Superman, and the change here is, it really ropes in all of his family. Supergirl, Superboy, Connor, Steel, and his daughter, whose superhero name I'm forgetting. The Superman from China. He's got 2 new kids that he brought back from War World. They're Power Girl. So there's a lot of cool stuff. It's a good jumping on point. I don't know if I'll stick with it, but it's cool. Action adventures, Superman, and it's an interesting sort of family dynamic. That's a little new. Then they've got a backup story by Dan Jurgens and Lee Weeks. Seriously underrated artist. Lee Weeks is incredible. Has been for decades. Lee Weeks is great. About the family when Connor was just a little kid. So sort of a flashback series of stories. And then they've got like a Power Girl story where it follows after Lazarus Planet, and that's an event where it changed people's powers. Supergirl. Power Girl can now enter people's dreams. Okay. Ooh, super chat. And I'll just keep showing you the shininess here. Hey, Chris and friends, curious what you hope will be on Gunn's DCU slate. Batista said he feels too old for Bane now, but I think he could be Hugo Strange. That's an interesting idea. Cinematic Spectre and Phantom Stranger, please. I hope he gives us at least something that we've never seen before. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to get things like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League stuff. We're going to get that. We're probably going to get Harley Quinn and things like that. We're going to get the popular characters. But yeah, they've got some characters we should explore. I don't know. Why not a Cyborg movie or something? Set some things up. But by the way, Larry, whoops. It's a cool idea. Batista probably is too old for somebody like Bane. He said, if they're going to start over, that they should go with some fairly young actors. That's a good idea. You want this to go for a few years. But as Hugo Strange, that's a cool idea for casting. We're almost done. I don't have a whole lot to say about this other than Saturday Morning Adventures are a very fun sort of limited series that IDW did with G.I. Joe and now with Ninja Turtles. When I read this, I legit hear those 1980s voice actors for all these characters. I think that that's a good sign. It's slight. It's not something you're going to necessarily remember, but it's a good blast of nostalgia. It's a good blast of nostalgia. And the last book I have to show here, although not the last comic I read this week that I want to talk about, the last one I want to talk about, Damn Them All. Folks, if this isn't on your radar yet, please let me put it on your radar. Spurrier writing, Charlie Adlard on art, a little bit of a riff on a character sort of like Constantine. The main character is able to do magic, and she works for organized crime. Not necessarily willingly. Oh, and it is set in London. And then there's a big thing going on where something has changed in the magical world, and people get these coins and can control a devil from hell. There's 72 of them. It shouldn't be that easy. This all talks about how magic should have a very high price if you want to use it, and it should not be easy to access. She understands that and is able to outmaneuver some people that otherwise have access to some very powerful weapons. Really, really like that. Yes, Chrissy, I can definitely shiny one back upstairs if you want to see it. It's pretty cool. But I really recommend this. This is a great book. This thing moves so fast, but it's got a lot of story to it. It's great. It's really, really good. The characters have some fantastic dialogue. It's a blast. It's a blast. I also read a couple other comics this week, but don't necessarily have them here with me. I read a bunch of manga. I've been reading Chainsaw Man. I read 2 more volumes of that. I'm up through volume 4. Same thing with Slam Dunk. Really enjoying Slam Dunk. Basketball manga. Pretty darn funny. Cannot wait to see Takehiko Inoue's art change to a more realistic style at some point. But I'm really enjoying Slam Dunk a lot. I really like Slam Dunk. I'm going to go through that one pretty fast, I bet. I also picked up Sins of Sinister digitally, and that was good. I'm not super plugged into X-Men, so I don't know exactly everything about what's going on these days with the mutant island of Krakoa, but what I liked about Sins of Sinister is he's a gist, has been. He's corrupted the X-Men's resurrection protocols. They can bring each other back to life now, which is, I'm going to talk about that in a sec. I want to talk about that. I think it's good that that's been corrupted. I don't love that idea. I find it very disturbing. Very disturbing. Let's see. Oh, this is a simple one. Steve says, what would I do if I got sucked into a Junji Ito comic? I'd probably die. In a horrible way. In Sins of Sinister, one cool thing that he's doing is he's cloned Moira McTaggart, who they've established when she dies, she goes back to her birth with all of her memories, so she can redo her own life in all sorts of different ways. Sinister has found a way to exploit that so that he can sort of go back to save points to perfect his plan, okay? And he's getting really close, like 10 years in the future, basically. 10 years in the future from now, he's basically corrupted almost everybody on Earth, certainly all the superheroes, all the mutants, etc. He hasn't quite got it nailed because like there's going to be like now alien races coming, and he hasn't quite nailed it. So he goes to jump back in time to our present. But this time when he gets there, his lab is empty. He has no access, like, and he doesn't know why, but something has changed. And now he doesn't have access to perfect things. It's an interesting jumping on point. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was pretty good. Have you been keeping up with Berserk? Absolutely. Berserk is fantastic. I'm glad it will get a conclusion. I'm glad it will get a conclusion. Let me add this to the stream. I'm going to start inking some stuff. Where did I just put my pens? I just had, right here. Oh, Randy, welcome. I plugged your Kickstarter earlier. Was Myra always able to do that, or was that our continuity, or was our continuity the first attempt at life? No, that's all things considered, relatively new addition to the mythology that she can redo things. We got a story where she already had lived about 9 different lives, and the current continuity of Marvel is her most recent life. And by the end of the story, where we're getting told that that's actually her power, she has her powers taken away. She has her mutant abilities taken away, so she can't reset the timeline anymore. It showed us some interesting other attempts where she tried to ally with like Apocalypse, or she tried to be a good, geneticist that like, followed Charles Xavier's dream. She's tried a lot of different ways. And what she kept finding was that in the somewhat near future, humanity used technology to get rid of mutants. So she was just trying to find a way to survive. So they didn't retcon that she was doing this all along. There's no retcon in terms of like the stories we've read have all happened. The retcon is that she's been a mutant and hasn't really revealed that to everyone this whole time. She hasn't really been used because her power isn't something, like overt. We got to see other sort of timelines, essentially, is what we got to see. But the one that we're in now was her most recent life, and she can't reset it anymore. So really change anything Marvel history. It changes what we know about Moira, and it kind of turns her into a villain, which I don't love. She's been a doctor and an ally. I don't love it. Yeah, like Ken Dog says, she is now a cyborg. Or is she even a cyborg? Because she's more like a robot. I don't know. It's a mess. It's a mess. Let me just see what this looks like real quick. Oh, I was going to use this brush, but this is actually gray. So I don't want to use gray. I want black. Hold on. Is this even lighter gray? Oh, I might have gotten a series of gray brush pens. Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind. I don't want to use these. Give me a sec while I grab some other material. I was going to just sort of ink a Casey Jones sketch that I banged out before the show. And the reason I don't just draw from scratch is I have a very hard time. When I draw, I need kind of silence, and I can't concentrate, talk to people while I'm also illustrating. I just can't. So I always have to sort of sketch something out just beforehand. Yeah, this is good. All right. I'm going to put Casey Jones in sort of his 80s comics look, which was more just sort of sweatpants and cutoffs and stuff like that. Just give him some sports tools. Sports tools. Yeah, that's what professional athletes call things, right? Sports tools. Hockey stick, Chris, maybe? Let's add something to the stream while I ink. We're going to talk about some news of the week. And we're going to start with a little DC Comics update, which is to say they've got some changes already from what they just announced about a month ago for Dawn of the DC. They had talked about some stuff that they were going to do for Green Lantern. Specifically here, I've got like that Dawn of DC announced that writer Mariko Tamaki would be writing a Hal Jordan Green Lantern book. And there was also announced a solo John Stewart title written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Well, this week, a totally different team was announced for Hal Jordan. It's Jeremy Adams writing, and I don't know exactly how to pronounce this, but I'm going to say Shermanico? Anyway, they're a team that worked on Flashpoint Beyond, and apparently they're the new creative team. This is some artwork by Shermanico, and that comes out in May. And then they also said that this book would have a backup comic about John Stewart by Philip Kennedy Johnson. So that made people like wonder, well, like, wait a minute, are you still doing, the actual book you talked about? And he said, yeah, this is just basically a prologue setting up the solo title. So anyway. Well, you sort of did, Randy. I started off my show plugging your Kickstarter. So you sort of did make the news. I just talked about it earlier. Inferno was fairly fun. I would argue it's the only story that did something with Madeline Pryor that justified her existence after they brought back Jean Grey, which I don't think was a good idea in the long run. Do you think there will be another Question comic from DC anytime soon? I don't know about anytime soon, but yes, absolutely think that they will have another one. Some news. This looked fun. Greg Capullo shared some Wolverine art. I know this doesn't like a lot, but he tweeted this 5 days ago. And he said, let the gossip begin. Now, we know that he said he's going to work for Marvel, and he hasn't worked for Marvel like on a regular title since '93. He did like Quasar, he did X-Force, but then of course he went over and started working for Todd McFarlane on Spawn for a really long time. And he's just done some work with Todd and DC on the Batman Spawn crossover, but he's been doing the creator-owned thing for a long time now. So he said he wanted to play with Marvel stuff, and exactly what could it be? Is it a Wolverine book? Is it something that just has Wolverine in it? That's a coincidence? I don't know. We know that Donny Cates said that, that Greg Capullo said Donny Cates was constantly trying to get him to work on something, but we haven't heard any confirmation of exactly what Greg Capullo's doing. All I can say is that'll probably be fairly big news for comics once it gets announced exactly what's happening. Do you follow Capullo's art, or is that somebody that you want to read something new by? Curious what the chat has to say. Andy says, sweet, yes. Put Capullo on a new Hulk book. That would be interesting. He's got I really liked his early artwork on Quasar. I think it's, good. I'm glad to see somebody else feels that. Quasar is so underrated. I think that was a really fun book. Mark Grunwald writing. Early Greg Capullo art. Clean. Very clean lines. Very clean. As long as they don't bring back the era of Wolverine without the nose. I don't think so. I'd buy a Cates Capullo book. Sure. Yeah. I'd love to see it. Cool art. Sounds like people are interested. Don't you hate it when basic vocabulary words get erased from your brain while you're speaking? Happens to me all the time. Makes me sound like a bit of a dummy. Hello, Moritaka. Capullo on Wolverine could work very well. Probably could, actually. Yeah, he'd be a good fit there, I think. I'd love to see Capullo on Spider-Man or Moon Knight. Moon Knight's not a bad idea either. Moon Knight, yeah, I could see him fitting there. Mm-hmm. Great early art with a hint of JR. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I could see that a little bit. Capullo is great. Would love to see him do anything at Marvel, especially Wolverine or Hulk. Okay. Okay. A couple people interested in Hulk. What was the manga controversy? Well, you're getting ahead of me. I'm not at that point yet. That's towards the end of the news. Yeah, he did. Yeah, Andy, you're right. On Twitter, he says that he's like that he's going to work on a new Creech comic. I'll be honest. I think he was joking, but maybe he's serious. I don't know either way. I really don't. Has Peter David ever written Daredevil? As far as I know, he was never the writer on the ongoing Daredevil book. I'm sure Daredevil had to have crossed over into something else he wrote, though. Right? That's an interesting thing. Has he? I don't know. I'm trying to think of like either Hulk or She-Hulk with Daredevil as a guest star, and I can't think of any, actually. Maybe Peter David hasn't written Daredevil. Huh. He hasn't unless it was a one-off. Yeah, I can't think of one. Interesting question. Let's see. Mayday Parker is confirmed for Across the Spider-Verse. Are you psyched? I'm psyched for the movie. I wouldn't say that I'm a big Mayday Parker fan. That doesn't necessarily make me more or less excited, but I know that she's got her fans, so that's good. Okay, sure. Daredevil was at Nick Fury's funeral that Peter David wrote. So there you go. Did he have any dialogue? I really don't remember. I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember. And don't worry, Nick Fury got better. It's comics. Oh, that's good. Let's see. Spider-Man Death of Jean DeWolf is the only time I saw him write Daredevil. Good. Going back, you're right. You're totally right. You're totally right. Good job, infamous Mike Manhattan. Super chat here. Chat plus Chris. Artist, writer you want on a comic title. I want people to just do more creator-owned stuff, to be honest. I really do. I think that's where people get most passionate. So I don't necessarily have a dream team for a superhero book that I'm curious when somebody has a new idea, but I don't necessarily have a dream team. He tweeted about finishing layouts for around 100 pages worth of Creech. I hope it comes to pass. Well, then maybe he is serious. Maybe he is serious. I guess I don't know how to take that. Let's see. I'm late to the live stream. People can jump in anytime. Glad to have you here. But I see that everyone's talking about 90s comics. I remember getting a Hulk book where his sidekick died from AIDS. Do you think you'll ever cover that book? I don't know if I really have plans to cover that specific issue. I've talked before about how I liked Peter David writing Hulk. I think it was a little too jokey sometimes, but then he could do serious stories like the two we've just mentioned. The time when Jim died from AIDS, the death of Jean DeWolf. He can get serious when he needs to. My dream team for a Spidey run would be Kohei Horikoshi, sure, My Hero Academia, and Yusuke Murata. I've heard the name, but it's not coming to me right now. I'd love to see Hernandez brothers do Spider-Man. Sure. Did you know that Tom Baker turned 89 on the 20th? No, I did not know that, but I'm glad he's still with us. Oh, I've got a kitty down here. Hold on. I think we might have to have a guest star. Let's see here. Let's see who we got. Oh, boy. Oh, squirmy worm. This is Lily. Meow. Do you want to say hello to the viewers? She's getting big, huh? Mwah. This is my kitty. She's getting big. You want to climb on Daddy? What you doing? Oops. Nobody wants to see that, Lily. Give him the face, not the butt. Give him the face. This is my cutie. Thank you for being my buddy. You're a good girl. You're a good girl. She wants to play. You can tell. You want to play? Go find your brother. Go find Jack. All right. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. And a million people just said kitty. Yeah, that's Lily. And she definitely keeps our house interesting. She and Jack, oh my God. The thing about Bengals is they're very smart. Okay. That means that they need activity. They gotta be active. They've gotta. That means if we're not playing with them when they want to play, they're just going to start demolishing things, more or less. But they're funny, and they also do cuddle a lot. They do like taking naps, and when they take naps, they like to be with Chrissy and I. So they're good. They're great. I like having them around. I'm glad that you guys got to see her. Now she's playing with her brother around the corner. More news? More news. Titans and Doom Patrol have both been canceled, although it might be more accurate to just say not renewed. A lot of the news called it canceled. I guess I'm feeding into that. Both of these shows are on their 4th seasons currently, and both got pretty good reviews. I looked it up before doing this to see if that was in fact accurate, and yeah, they both actually have solid reviews. Especially Doom Patrol, which I have not watched yet, folks. I know that makes me bad. I don't have an opinion on Doom Patrol. I watched the 1st season of Titans, but HBO Max announced just a couple days ago that when their current 4th seasons end, that's it. My understanding is the writing staff wrote both of these as though the show was ending, so it will have some closure. These are produced by Greg Berlanti, the same guy that produces all the DC shows on the WB, and so that means that these two and Flash are going to sort of represent the end of his adaptations, at least for now. And I think some of that might just be the fact that, you know, Gunn and Safran got put in as the new heads of DC studios, and you know, maybe they want to have some more consistency between TV and film, so it's just not a great time to renew anything or start a new one. Although Gotham Knights is apparently about to start. That's a TV show, so who knows how that fits in. Anyway, both of these started on the DC Universe app. I don't know if you remember that. They had their own streaming service briefly when everybody, you know, like the Maytag refrigerator streaming platform. Everybody seemed to have a streaming platform. The Ford F-150 streaming platform. And then the last 2 years, they've been on HBO Max. Anybody watch either of them? Let's see. If you're a fan of the Morrison run, I am. It is a must-watch. Okay. Fair. Watched it briefly. Okay. Unsure if this new creative direction or just more merger axing everything in sight. Hey, why can't it be both? Why can't it be both? But that is true. Yeah, like obviously the folks in charge of HBO these days, ever since Discovery bought them, are definitely looking to trim some fat, I guess you could say. Wait, what was that? What was that? Michael DeFonte. I love watching pros and cons news every week. Well, now it's pros and cats. Your Thunderbolts video on Comic Tropes was, as Sergeant Slaughter's Renegades from G.I. Joe the movie would say, perfect. It was a flawless Sergeant Slaughter impression. Eddie's disease. Oh, Sarge. Bless you for changing up the G.I. Joe cartoon in such an interesting way. Eddie's disease. What? You watched the Thunderbolts video like 4 times? Thank you. Thank you. I didn't watch that show. Okay. Yes. I definitely remember that, Brian. And that was why I didn't watch these shows at first. I remember that initial teaser for Titans. That was cringy with Robin dropping the F-bomb about Batman. I was like, eh. But you know what? I watched season 1 and it was pretty good. The actor who plays Dick Grayson, I think he's got some charisma. I think he could actually go somewhere. So, like for him, this might be a good thing. This might free him up to do something good. Oh, have I watched The Last of Us? 0 spoilers from me, folks. But my God, one of my favorite games. And they're changing a few things up, but this show is accurate to the characters and the world of The Last of Us. Episode 3, a diversion with some side characters that we never really got to know well in the games, produced one of the best hours of television I've seen in ages. Just beautiful, beautiful storytelling, taking advantage of this sort of post-apocalyptic world and telling a beautiful story that would not have happened had it not been for this world. Finding some happiness within a horrible, scary world. Episode 3, it's going to be hard for the show to top that episode. It was a side story, essentially. Boy, was it just amazing. Yes, I strongly recommend The Last of Us. Episode 3 was something special. Something special. But we're here to talk about comics. So let's keep moving. Daredevil Born Again. That's staffing up. Daredevil Born Again is going to be a Disney Plus show next year, 2024. They hired a bunch of writers and I thought this was interesting. I thought this was worth mentioning. So first of all, there we go. They hired 3 real-life lawyers. David Feige, no relation to Kevin Feige, by the way. Thomas Wong, Zachary Ryder. That's interesting, isn't it? Hiring actual lawyers to write for the Daredevil show. It implies that they might actually have some courtroom stuff for Matt Murdock, which I definitely think gets neglected in a lot of interpretations, both comics and movies and TV. It's who Matt Murdock is, and I want to see him doing some real, Law and Order courtroom stuff. They also hired 2 writers from the Arrowverse, Jill Blankenship and Grain Godfrey, which to me implies that this Daredevil is going to have to solve a lot of problems with arrows. He's going to say, yes, Kingpin has a stranglehold on the police. It's very corrupt, but how do I solve this problem with an arrow? Bullseye is murdering my old girlfriend Elektra, but how do I solve this problem with an arrow? That's going to be the big question. It's going to be an 18 episode season, which sounds like way too many. Who knows? But that's going to start next year in 2024. That's the only part of all of this that sincerely worries me a little bit. I feel like 18 episodes just sounds like so much real estate to fill at once. Does not seem to sort of fit the current model of storytelling that most prestige TV shows go for. Who knows? Maybe it'll be fine. But I was encouraged by hiring real lawyers. I think that's great. I've always thought Daredevil needed more arrows. Ironically, during one of his best eras, when Frank Miller was working on Daredevil, there were a lot of arrows in those stories. The Hand was always shooting a lot of arrows. Daredevil might be in 3 parts. Who knows? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm fine with 18 episodes. I'm going to wait and see. It's a lot of ground to cover. Did anybody see the Daredevil director's cut of the 2003 movie? Much better than the theatrical release, in my opinion. I thought it was better in some ways, but I don't think it like necessarily made it a good movie. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that, apparently. Yo! I've got some Canadian super chats here. Gord says, I made it. Thank you for the hours you put in, Chris. Many hours listening to you and drawing. You are a Price mon frere. I hope to send more comics in the mail soon. Well, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. Good luck with that, Gord. Good luck. What do you mean you'll never get a chance to watch? Randy, everyone is going to go to Kickstarter right now. Order Bullet Adventures. You're going to sell so many copies, you're going to be able to afford Disney Plus so that you and your sons can watch some Marvel stuff. Oh, prize mon frere? You are a prize mon frere? Does that mean like a good man? I don't really speak any French, I don't think, but I'm trying to reason it out with the Latin that I know. I appreciate the kind words. I know that, yeah. 18 episodes, they could cover a lot of the mythos. Absolutely. And there's a lot of great Daredevil stories to potentially cover. Obviously, with the title Born Again, it sounds like they're going to adapt Born Again. And that is a great story. So we'll see. We'll see. My friend. Mon frere. My friend. Thank you. Gene, did you take French in high school or did you take Spanish? Did you take French? I don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm old now. I don't remember. Bullseye has to be on radar, but you have to take him out with arrows. I speak Latin. I do not speak Latin. Let me make that clear. I took Latin in high school for several years. That was a long time ago. I remember some of the vocabulary. I don't remember how to speak it. If you guys ever want to translate some Latin or get some Latin in a comic book, there is a comic book writer who is an expert at Latin. He has a postgraduate degree, I should say, in Latin, Benito Cereno. So if you ever want to use Latin in one of your comics, he has said that he will do that for free because he wants there to be good, accurate Latin in comics. So if that's something you want to do, you need to reach out to Benito Cereno. Okay, it meant brother. Thank you for the help, folks. I'm going to move on to some more news. We've joked enough about poor Daredevil. All right. I didn't even really have a great joke on that one, so let's just keep moving. Hey, speaking of sort of jokes, Steven Dorff, that's not a nice transition. He has mocked the modern comic book movies. Who's Steven Dorff? Well, if you see him and you can see just a little bit of his CD blood hand here, he was the bad guy in Blade, the first Blade movie, which starred our good friend Wesley Snipes. And that was a pretty fun movie. It was a fun one. It wasn't perfect, but it was a fun one. Well, Steven Dorff definitely does more sort of indie fare in general. He did an interview with the Daily Beast, and he said he would only star in a comic book movie today if it was more like the one that he was in. And I think these are some prize quotes by Steven Dorff. I think that he might be overestimating how good that original Blade was, because it was good. It was fun. Some of the CG in it is pretty wonky, even for the standards of 1998 or whatever that it came out in. Yeah. All right. Let's read this first quote by Steven Dorff. All this other garbage is just embarrassing. You know what I mean? I mean, God bless them. They're making a bunch of money, but their movies suck. And nobody's going to remember them. Nobody's remembering Black Adam at the end of the day. I didn't even see that movie. It looked so bad. Okay. I don't want to be in a position of defending Black Adam. So fair enough. Fair enough. Seems like, you know, when you're a working actor that you don't necessarily want to just badmouth movies like that. But you're allowed to have your opinions. You're allowed to have your opinions. So fair enough. This one I thought was even more interesting. How's that PG Blade movie going for you that can't get a director? Ha ha ha. Because anybody who goes there is going to be laughed at by everyone because we already did it and made it the best. There's no Steve Norrington out there. No, there is no Steve Norrington out there. The guy that's so good he made 2 movies after he made League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that prompted Sean Connery to quit acting. You drove Sean Connery away from us, Steve Norrington. Look, I don't even. That's a lot to take. He probably knows what he's doing here. He probably knows exactly that he's saying something a little bit incendiary to get some press. And hey, you made it onto Pros and Cons, so you got the press. From here, you'll probably get my role as Pace Pop Pete. So, you know, LXE was not a bad movie. I think it was. We're each allowed our opinions, aren't we? We're each allowed our opinions. I did not care for that one. I did not care for that take on the material. But who's to say I'm right? Nobody. Let's see. Despite the shade, Dorf was pretty great in season 3 of True Detective. I didn't watch season 3, was he? He's not a bad actor at all. He isn't. I've seen him in a couple things. He's not a bad actor. He has been in some bad movies, though. He actually has been in some pretty bad movies. I think he was in a Uwe Boll movie. Ooh. He's made a lot of extremely forgettable films. He has. But he's not a bad actor. I've seen him in some good stuff, too. What We Do in the Shadows. Was he in that? No. Wesley Snipes was in What We Do in the Shadows, but not Stephen Dorff. Season 3 rocked. Okay. I love Blade, but let's not pretend it's peak cinema. That's all I'm saying, too. It was definitely fun. And look, it got, you know what? I mean, Blade did a lot for comic book movies. It was rated R at a time when that really wasn't happening for any sort of comic book adaptation. You know, this was before stuff like History of Violence and stuff like that. It was after The Crow, but it wasn't common. You know, it was before Deadpool and Logan and stuff like that. So it was taking itself fairly seriously in a lot of ways. I think it came up with a look that beat The Matrix. You know, I don't think it inspired The Matrix because they came out so soon after one another, but that sort of black trench coat and sunglasses look, I mean, yeah, Blade got there first. And I think that the sort of, you know, lack of spandex and stuff definitely influenced X-Men. I'm pretty sure it influenced X-Men. And X-Men and Spider-Man definitely are remembered as sort of starting a bit of a comic book renaissance or comic book film renaissance. But Blade got there first. And it just sort of was, it flew under the radar at the time, just to be clear. You know, it did well and it got itself a sequel and then another not great sequel. But it did a lot well. It did. But it was also just not, it's still kind of campy in some levels, you know? I didn't know his name until today. Okay, that's totally fair, EJ. Dorff's first movie was The Gate. The Gate. Is that horror movie? I think I've seen it. Blade was first Bullet Time. It did have slow-mo stuff with bullets, yes. Yeah. Blade was better than Morbius. Remember, the original ending to the first Blade movie after he defeats Deacon Frost here was Morbius is on like a rooftop staring at Blade, but they cut that. But they were originally thinking that Morbius would be the villain for Blade 2. That was the original idea. I thought it was funny anyway, the stuff that Stephen Dorff is saying, because it's like, you know what, you weren't in even like, you know, I don't know, Dark Knight or something like that. Blade is fun, but to act like it was perfection and that they can't do something that good again is they can. Will they? Who knows? Maybe they won't. And there is always a lot of crap, but there's also good stuff. You know, like, are you gonna say like Black Adam is forgettable? You're right, it is. But we don't have to go back too far to find a good comic book adaptation. You know, like there's always good and bad. There's always good and bad. I was kind of sad about this one. There's a comic here called Dead Day, and it was a cool premise. You know, like the dead coming back to the world for one day, the Day of the Dead. Written by Ryan Parrott, who does Rogue Sun. That's set in the Massive universe. Well, it was supposedly going to be a live action TV show. It got picked up straight to series for Peacock, yet another streaming platform. But it was being adapted by Julie Plec and Kevin Williamson. They're the team that did Vampire Diaries, which was a successful show. Kevin Williamson also created Scream. That's a good feather in his cap. Dawson's Creek. You know, he's done some good TV stuff. It got picked up straight to series. And then all of a sudden this past week, Peacock said, actually, we're going to cancel it. So they paid a lot of money to get the ball rolling. They hired up staff and crew and cast and stuff like that because it got a full series order. But now they canceled it. All I can say is the production arm, Universal, has said they're going to see if they can find another outlet for it. So I told you a little bit about the premise. I told you the behind the scenes drama about how they picked it up to series only to sort of pull the rug out from under everybody, saying like, no, actually we changed our minds. But I wonder, and I have no knowledge if this is accurate or anything like that, but this is a comic published by Aftershock. And we know that Aftershock is having a lot of issues paying its talent while they're dealing with bankruptcy. And I have to wonder if that fed into any of this decision making at all. Like that, you know, like maybe Universal decided that they didn't want to be in business with Aftershock for any reason. I don't know why. I don't really have anything that I'm basing that on. All I know is that there's a lot of drama going on with the publisher, and you wonder if some of that uneasiness could have somehow translated to the TV show not getting picked up. I don't know. Did anyone read this book, though? Road to Perdition came after Blade, but it was an excellent dark comic book movie. No question. Yep. Road to Perdition, History of Violence. There have been some really serious dramas. There's been all sorts of really good comic book adaptations in the years since Blade. Persepolis. Pretty sure Ghost World came after Blade. Anyway, lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff. Is Aftershock the one selling editors' credits? No, that was bad idea. So, Aftershock will get some sort of a check for like this getting picked up, but like, will they get like ongoing paychecks for a show? Only if it gets picked up. And I don't think it will now, if I'm being realistic. I wish I had read Dead Day. Sounds interesting. There's no reason you can't find it now. It's, you know, you can find it in comic book stores. Yeah, Dead Day. So, some drama that like was a little bit frustrating. This is just a crazy comic book tangentially related story. As you can see with my headline here, and like maybe with like this Fire Department of New York truck here. There was a woman that was burned alive for destroying some comic books. I would call that an overreaction. Human life is never worth an exchange for any comic book. Nobody deserves to die. This involves a gentleman named LaShawn Duffy. He's only 28, by the way, and he's accused of kidnapping and burning, and I'm going to guess at her name, Citriya Ramirez. I misspelled it here. She was like 40, and I guess they dated in the past, but they had broken up or anything. She destroyed some of his comics. Well, now they've got him on camera going to like a bodega around the corner from her apartment. He purchased twine, a lighter, and accelerant. He bound her to a chair, and he burned her alive. He killed her because she destroyed some of his comic books. That's crazy. That is just crazy. I'm trying to like keep away from going into any more of the graphic details because it's just not fun to talk about. I just wanted to say that, yeah, like, I don't care if it's like, my high school bully tore up Action Comics #1 in front of me. That person still doesn't deserve to die. Just crazy. Just crazy. So people, let's keep everything. I'm just saying, like, let's keep it in perspective here. Let's keep it in perspective. Wish I popped in on a happier story. Well, great news, because here come the jokes based on it. Now, I'm not going to make any jokes based on it. Just a crazy story I wanted to bring up. I'll move on to something cheerier. The Boys. The Boys has never been like getting happier than another comic book story. The Boys is pretty dark show, right? But they had incredible streaming numbers. Nielsen tracks views on all sorts of TV shows, including streaming shows. And I would know because until recently, I can say this now, I couldn't say it for a long time. Chrissy and I were a Nielsen household. We had to wear monitors that captured everything we watched. But we're not doing that anymore. So I can reveal that now. You're supposed to keep it a secret while you're doing it. But anyway, so I probably contributed to these statistics actually, but they ranked the most watched streaming shows from last year. And on the right, so on the left, we've got the program name. We've got where it came from. We've got how many episodes, and we've got the minutes watched. So the first comic book show is The Boys. And that's number 11 out of all streaming shows with over 10.6 billion minutes of watch time. That's a lot. That is a lot. That is a lot. We can see that like Stranger Things was the most watched, and that had 52 billion minutes. That also had 34 potential episodes versus The Boys 24. But still, 52 billion. The next comic book show that there's only one other that makes it into the top 15, The Umbrella Academy, actually. And that also got very close. That got like 10.5 billion minutes. So kudos to The Umbrella Academy, actually. By the way, look at this. The Rings of Power. The most expensive show ever made, I'm pretty sure. 8 episodes, 9.4 billion. Hey, I guess good that they at least made it that high, but like look at something like Cobra Kai here. Cobra Kai is the number 4 most watched streamed show of the year. There's no way that costs like I bet the whole season costs what, like 1 episode of Rings of Power costs, something like that. Just crazy. Not necessarily money well spent. Let's see. Chrissy says, regarding Nielsen, we just had to wear those beeper-like things all day, every day, other than sleep. We were chosen at random, but they told us several homes in our neighborhood participated. I don't think they told us several homes in our neighborhood. I think they told us that we represented our neighborhood. But I could be wrong. Umbrella Academy is fun. Chrissy actually really liked season 1 of that. I didn't like it as much as the comics, so I haven't watched beyond that, but I know Chrissy liked it. Speaking of Stranger Things, The Whale shows that Sadie Sink is the most talented actor on that show. Yeah. She's damn good. Congrats on The Boys, but I think Hollywood execs and studios will get the wrong idea lesson from that. They probably will. They typically look at what the most popular thing is and look at the surface elements. Oh, Stranger Things is popular? Okay, we'll do 80s shows. The Boys is popular? Okay, people like dark, cynical superheroes. No, we like good stories. Chris had the viewing power of 100,000 people. It's true. I represented nerddom. Let's see. No, they said they were making the rounds, checking in with all the participants in our neighborhood. Oh, they did do that once. You're right. They did do that once. You're right. What's the highest rated show on Disney Plus and HBO Max? HBO Max, it would have to be, these were just the things for streaming originals. So for instance, HBO Max would not include a show like House of the Dragon or The Last of Us as examples, because those also air on HBO. So like those statistics are out there for viewership numbers, but they're not quite the same. Disney Plus, the only thing I know is that the most watched MCU thing was Eternals, actually. And I don't remember the numbers on it, but that it does make a little bit of sense when you consider a few things. I know Eternals wasn't necessarily that popular, but it came out like last January, so it had the full year to get viewing numbers. And second, it did come out during the height of the pandemic when a lot of people still weren't going to theaters, so it was their first chance to see it. So there were two things that like would help bump up its numbers. Yeah. Still waiting for the Evil Ernie movie that Brian Pulido is interested in. Yeah. Eternal's the movie I'm saying. Great question. You'd have to go to Nielsen to. I didn't go through the full statistics for everything. I'm sure that Disney Plus and HBO Max do have some shows that are like in the top 30, but they weren't in the top 15. Netflix dominates things. Netflix definitely dominates things. Prime is only represented with 2 shows, The Boys and Rings of Power. But Netflix also, just to be clear, a lot more people are subscribed to Netflix than any other streaming service still. Did you ever watch a show not because you wanted to, but because you felt it needed your Nielsen rating to survive? Stuff I considered in like the first month or so of having that monitor, but no, ultimately I watched what I wanted to watch. I felt like that was, I just don't have time to watch something and just be like, this is going to help it survive. Because I wouldn't know, and I just didn't have that kind of time. I thought about it a little, Andy. I did think about it a little, like, oh, this could make a difference, but I think I do watch a fair amount of comic book stuff. So I'm sure I skewed at least some of the results there. It's like somebody said, I represent about 100,000 people because they can't like get everybody's data, but yeah, they got Chrissy and mine. Did I watch Cyberpunk 2077 Edge Runners? No, I don't even know where to find that, actually. I tried the game for twice, but I couldn't really stick with it. I just wasn't super into it. It's not bad. I just didn't really capture my attention. Okay. It's on. Okay. Everybody says that Cyberpunk 2077 Edge Runners is on Netflix. Okay. Is it good? I didn't watch it, but always looking for recommendations. Congrats to the boys. So there's a Marvel app that won't update. The Marvel digital reading app. At least I don't know an update on it because I'm not using it, but we're talking about just like their reading app. This past Wednesday was New Comic Book Day, when new comics can become available also to buy on the reading app. And Marvel wasn't loading their most recent stuff. They had done previous week. Well, the Marvel digital app is powered by ComiXology. Last week, the big news that we talked about was the fact that ComiXology had mass layoffs, like about 75% of its staff. So the question is, did these mass layoffs at ComiXology include whoever pushes through the new comics from Marvel? It seems likely. You can buy the Marvel titles through the Amazon site for like Kindle and stuff like that, but you couldn't do it through the Marvel digital app. No, not the Marvel Unlimited app. Not the Marvel Unlimited app. There are two apps. There's the Marvel Unlimited, which is their own thing that you can buy comics through, and then they have a digital reader that's powered by ComiXology that also allows you to get it. Two different ways to get it. Two different. Yeah, you have to imagine at this point, it seems like Amazon is pushing people towards Kindle only as a digital reading platform. That's what it seemed like. Last comment on streaming and terrible executive decisions. Boy, Watanabe sure hated Cowboy Bebop. It's a shame he had very little involvement consulting. It is disappointing. I love Cowboy Bebop. I thought that the cast they got was actually really good, and they had some good stylistic decisions here and there, but ultimately that show did not, like the live action just, it was too slowly paced. It didn't move. It didn't move like it should have. Yeah, not a great adaptation, unfortunately, and I feel bad. Like, like I said, I think that they did cast it well. It just wasn't fun. Wasn't as fun as it should have been. And it makes me, wonder and worry a little bit is, for instance, One Piece. Is that going to be any good? Because, boy, that is a huge property to adapt. A lot more people know One Piece. But, there is a live action version of that coming at the end of the year on Netflix. So you definitely wonder what that'll do. Hopefully they do it well. We shall see. Live action anime is never good. Let me think for a minute. I'm not sure if that's true. Let me think for a moment. What was that movie? I saw it on a plane and it actually surprised me. Battle Angel Alita. When I saw the first previews for that, her eyes looked too big and I was like, that's going to be terrible. I saw it on a plane and I was like, that was actually decent. That was actually decent. Have there been any other live action adaptations? Yeah, you know what else I liked? I liked the live action. Well, it was an adaptation of the manga, I should say. Maybe there've been good live action adaptations of manga, not necessarily of anime. Because I was just going to say stuff like Death Note. I really like the live action version of that, and there've been others, but they're sort of adapting the manga, not necessarily the anime. Interesting. One Piece has over 1,000 episodes. I will be surprised if they get past 2 seasons. With the amount Netflix has invested, I feel like they're going to have to commit to doing more than that. We'll see. Old Boy, sure. Ichi the Killer. Mm-hmm. No, not the Netflix Death Note. I'm talking about the original Japanese movies. I'm not. The Netflix version was terrible. The Alita Battle Angel movie is the only good live action anime adaptation. Is it the only? I'm trying to think of any others. It's tough. I'm trying to think and brainstorm. Yeah, I don't know. Lone Wolf and Cub films are excellent. But here's the thing. Yeah, I think we can think of some that have been adapted into both good anime and good live action, but they're based on a manga. Has there been an original anime, which Cowboy Bebop was originally anime? Has an anime been adapted to good live action after that? Old Boy was Japanese. Yeah. I can't think of many. I can't really think of many. I can think of one or two. I can think of one or two, but well, Alita Battle Angel, was that originally a manga or was that originally an anime? Because now I'm not sure. Snowpiercer was based on Bande Dessinée, French or Belgian technically comic. That was based on a Belgian comic. Do people like Speed Racer? I never watched it. There are people that absolutely love Speed Racer. Robert Kirkman loves the Wachowski's version of Speed Racer. Loves it. Loves it. Interesting idea. It is true that most, like, at least most American adaptations of manga and anime have not been good. Not most American versions that I can think of. I can think of a lot of bad ones. You know, what was the one Scarlett Johansson was in? I couldn't even get through that one. I raised to that live action Fist of the North Star a great watch with friends. I haven't seen the live action version. I do love the manga. Even though like the main character never really has any problems defeating the enemies, not really. Reading it, it does. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. It's really cool in a lot of ways, and and reading this, you definitely see like, you know, oh, okay, now I understand where JoJo's Bizarre Adventure came from. Now I understand where Berserk came from. Fist of the North Star definitely sets the tone there for a lot of stuff. Jackie Chan City Hunter. Well, that's a manga though, not an anime originally. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell, right. And then I heard there was a live action Dragon Ball that was really bad, but I don't know Dragon Ball very well. I don't really know it. Well, that was an interesting side topic. Let's go forward with the news. So, as long as we're talking about like manga and stuff like this, I thought this was fascinating. The Attack on Titan creator, he was awarded at the Angoulême Comic Book Festival in France this week. By the way, I think next year I'm going to give a sincere effort to go to Angoulême. I mean, a whole comic book festival in France. It just sounds so cool. I'd really love to see it. There's so many exhibits, like art exhibits and stuff, and they honor comics all over the world. I'm going to talk about how they honored some Japanese comics. So the Attack on Titan manga creator, Hajime Isayama, he received something called the Fave Special de la 50 Edition Award. I don't know. I can't speak French. I don't know what that means. He was given a special award. Cool. Good for him. Two other manga creators got Faute d'honneur, favorite honor. I don't know. Ryoichi Ikegami. That's Crying Freeman. He also did a Spider-Man manga back in the day. Boy, would I love to do an episode about the Spider-Man manga. Here's the problem. It's never been officially translated all the way through in English. So be very, very hard for me to read the whole story and translate it. They brought a bunch of it over in like a color Marvel version. They changed they flipped it and they put it in color. I'd really love to see the original black and white given a good translation so that I could review that. Junji Ito also got an award, but he always gets an award. Here's another cool thing though. So if you love Attack on Titan, I think you'd be interested in this. Hajime Isayama put up 4 of his work desks for auction. Why is he doing that? He says that he is now like moving so much to digital that he and his assistants don't need these work desks to draw it anymore. He had his father, a furniture designer, create these for him so that he could have like a nice workflow station specifically for the way he liked to make comics. But he just doesn't need these 4 anymore. So he's donating them to an auction, and the proceeds go to Doctors Without Borders. What a fantastic organization. What a fantastic charity and idea. The French art auction house, you can guess on this pronunciation, Drouot, they're handling the bids through February 11th. So you could look that up. You could bid. Maybe you could get yourself one of Hajime Isayama's work desks. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some translation stuff. Let's just say that the AI translators are kind of garbage. They always have been. They're lowering the standard of translation, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I use them when I travel, but you have to know that they're not very accurate. You're getting like some of the words, but it's all garbled. So I don't want to use that to read a comic. I really don't. Let's see. I misread that and thought award went to attacker. Yeah, an attacker of Hajime Isayama got an award. You attacked him really well. If you're going to attack a creator, attack him well. Let's see. He got it quick considering Takahashi Rumiko had to wait 20 years or so. Aw, yeah. I used it in Vietnam. It was super helpful. I've used it too. Like I said, I've traveled and I used that Google Translate. But you can tell that you're not necessarily getting accurate grammar and full context. You're getting the words and you can like intuit some of what it means. But it's a pretty garbled translation. Julie Dussault is a curator at Angoulême this year. She is priceless. I don't know. I will have to take your word on that. But I thought that was cool. Like that he has these desks that were created specifically for creating manga, and that now the work style has changed such that he doesn't feel he needs them anymore. And yeah, let's auction them off, give the proceeds to a great charity. I feel like this is a sort of a feel-good story all the way around. I don't know if everybody agrees, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was very cool. I've got more news, folks. I've got 3 more pieces of news for you. 3. Let's talk about the translation controversy that happened this week with the Kamen Rider manga. So, a company called Stonebot partnered with publisher Titan to release Kamen Rider Kuuga, I'm guessing at that one, based on the 2000 TV series. Kamen Rider is one of those Power Rangers-esque shows, tokusatsu. It's popular. It's been around forever. There's a new manga adaptation of it. It's by creators Toshiki Inoue and Hitotsu Yokishima. Anyway, some fans complained that the syntax was really, really awkward, that the reading experience in the manga was like, it was a bad translation. They were like, this just doesn't read right. It felt like they were translating each word, but not changing the order. Japan puts things like verbs at the end of their sentences instead of sort of towards the beginning. It's just a different way. It's a very different way of looking at grammar. And then they discovered, I'm going to show you something. Then they discovered that originally the company released preview pages of the same pages, and they actually had a much better translation originally. So like their advertising was showing a good translation. And then the stuff we got was like, well, what did they use? You know, like something like Google Translate and a little bit of logic to fix it up. Here's an example. On the left here is the original sort of preview pages that they advertised. And on the right is what actually got released in comic book form. And some of the things that we see that were done better are, first of all, I think that's a much better font and simpler. If we look over here, it's just a little more blocky, and it's a lot bigger here. They're covering up less of the artwork with these original things, and they're filling the balloon in a more filling way than this like super tiny stuff. So this disqualification, but in the font, and like, so this person's thinking like, you really are the goddess. Whereas over here, the version that they released in print says, you could be really at my place. You could be really at my place? That doesn't really make sense. You could be really at my place. Like they're seeing this like, strange creature and you could be at my place? Versus like, you have to like interpret some of this stuff sometimes. Japanese is what's called a high context language, as in they use less words to say things because they expect the person reading or hearing it to make some interpretations based on the situation. We use a lot more words in English to explain things. It's not a good translation. Not exactly clear, Moritaka, if they used AI to translate it or not. It's possible, at least in part, they might have. They definitely hired some different people to translate and letter stuff when they released the preview pages as an advertisement, because that seems a lot more professional. Titan released this whole statement saying that, like, hey, we've been listening carefully over the past few days to your feedback on the highly anticipated Kamen Rider Kuuga manga translation, and we want to sincerely thank you for bringing specific issues to our attention. Anyway, they said that they're going to correct art errors and textual inconsistencies for all digital and subsequent printings of the book. We're implementing extra internal edits to ensure that the books are highest quality and accuracy. We will continue to work closely with our translators and Kamen Rider brand experts on the series to improve all aspects of production. So they acknowledged that they can better. They're saying they're going to do a better job. And I think that that's fair. I think that they responded great. I do. I think they responded great. I think that basically they just, they cheaped out on some level on the translators for the actual printed edition. But they were caught. Fans were like, this just doesn't read right. It felt awkward. It felt strange. You don't need to like speak the other language to just know that like your reading experience is strange. Like this doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully moving forward, that's a better reading experience for everyone involved. We shall see. We shall see. They're going to, they say like, yeah, continue to print this as demand is there, and future printings would have the better translations and lettering. Mm-hmm. We have decided to hire someone. That's almost what it feels like. I can say this. I have looked sometimes at fan translations online of manga when I'm trying to get images for something. And I'm like, it's not as good. It's not as good. You're like, okay, the person might even speak a little of the language, but they don't know how to interpret it. It's you need a professional to do this. You need a professional. It's the only way it becomes readable. The Kamen Rider show is normally translated by fan groups that do a better job. If it's a group of people, though, then you've got people to sort of check your work, kind of like the scientific method, right? Whereas, if it's just one or two people that don't necessarily know what they're doing, it's just not going to come out as well. There's an art to good translation. There sincerely is. You have to make certain interpretations to make it make sense in another language, without losing the spirit of what's being said or making new things up. There definitely is an art to it all, no question. And I think that it's well, what was I going to say? I've lost my train of thought, unfortunately. Oh well. Oh well, I lost my train of thought on that one. Casey Jones, the Turtles Human ally. Love Ninja Turtles. You know, sometimes people like asking this, like, what comic would you like to write? And I always say, like, you know, I'd like to write my own ideas because that's true. But I probably would have a blast writing Ninja Turtles. That's also true. You know, that would be a fun one to work on. That would be a fun one. I just want to say that, like, ever since AI translation became a thing, a lot of companies will, you know, try to go with that as much as possible because it's cheaper. But it lowers the overall standard and quality. And I think that that same thing is happening with AI writing and AI images. So it's inevitable that it will be out there, but it's cheaper. You know, it's not the same level of quality, and it's going to take a long time for, you know, I think the technology to get to a point where it can accurately interpret and translate things. But I would love the idea. I have to admit, like, imagine being able to put on a pair of glasses that could, like, translate on the fly other languages into whichever one you spoke and do it accurately. That would be an amazing world. It really would. I took 2 translation courses, and there's so much to consider: intent, grammar, cultural context, etc. And boy, those manga entertainment videos are case studies on hilariously bad translation. They certainly can be. Uh, you know, thank you for the super chat, Meonian. I started this episode talking about how I wrote for my friend's blog that used to exist, the Robots Pajamas. I translated all 3 seasons of the Transformers cartoon. Did I say translated? I reviewed every episode of the Transformers cartoon that came out in Japan that was set in the same continuity as the American show. When it ended here, it continued for another few years over in Japan. And the translations were sometimes pretty silly. They were silly sometimes. They said some weird things. And so that was always fun to make jokes about how weird the differences were. That was really fun. And I miss that that isn't still online to show. That would have been fun. So there's some good stuff in some of them. I do like Transformers Victory the most out of the 3. Also has a really catchy theme song. We're almost done. We looked at that last piece of news. Just a silly little thing that I thought was worth mentioning. John Cryer played Lex Luthor on Supergirl, one of the Arrowverse shows. He was prominently used when they did their Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover arc. That was fun. Well, he just tweeted this week this over here on the right. He said, after the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, I pitched Warner Brothers on a Legion of Doom series. Wasn't meant to be, I guess. That could have been fun. I think I can understand why it didn't happen, which is probably expense, because it would probably be pretty hard to do a Legion of Doom TV series without having heroes. And even if you didn't have the Flash every week or something, you'd probably want to hire, you know, each of those main actors and you know, put them in, and that would be expensive on, you know, a budget standpoint, because you're using different heroes different weeks, and the fact that you were trying to get like the main stars here and there from other shows. So yeah, they did do a small version of the Legion of Doom on Arrowverse. Also, John might not have known that, but on one of the seasons, I think it might have been season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, there were a trio of bad guys that called themselves the Legion of Doom, and that was Captain Cold, Reverse Flash, and Damien Dark. So that was kind of cool. Also, by the way, here's something that, like, I'm not up to date on any of those shows anymore, but I always thought that the Superman and Lois show that's on was a spin-off But I guess not. They just used the same actors to play Superman on both Supergirl, and then did a spin-off where it's set in its own continuity, because they just hired a different actor to play Lex Luthor on their show, Michael Cudlitz. He was, in comic book terms, he was Abe on Walking Dead. He's a good actor, but I thought that was interesting. And by the way, John Cryer said kudos to him, good call. So there's no hurt feelings there or anything. But I thought that was interesting that John Cryer went up against Superman as Lex Luthor on the Supergirl show and stuff like that. But I guess the Lois and Clark is a different reality. I don't know. Superman and Lois season 2 confirmed they're on an Earth where Superman is the only superhero. Huh. That's interesting. So even though it was the same actors from Supergirl, it's technically sort of like a parallel version. Okay. Fun little idea, but yeah. Let me switch this. Was there anything else that I was going to talk about this week? I think that's all the big comic book news that I wanted to address. Yeah. Oh, I know something cool. I think Evan Dorkin is a tremendously underrated talent. I think he's one of the funniest writers in comics. He also can write some really deep emotional stuff like Beasts of Burden. But I got these recently. His comic Milk and Cheese is really, really funny. And there were these little figures that you could order from something called HH Toys. And so I ordered these this past week. And I don't know if they're going to. Let me turn off this light and see if I can get it dark enough real quick. Can we see maybe even just one? I don't think I can quite get it in enough darkness. Oh, you sort of can see there. Do you see that it's got a faint bit of, yeah, that's almost dark enough to sort of see that there's some glowiness to it. So yeah, these were super limited edition. If you're interested in something like this, only thing I can say is follow Evan Dorkin on Twitter, because every once in a while this company releases tiny, tiny waves of these, and you have to jump on it fast. But I like Milk and Cheese, so that was fun to get. Yeah, them are cool. Vaguely green. Yeah, vaguely. Let's see, a carton of hate and a wedge of spite. Exactly right. Exactly right. Dairy Gone Bad. Dairy Gone Bad. But yeah, I think he's a super funny person. And he has an interesting Twitter account. He talks about some interesting stuff. So, yeah. Boy, I don't think any other social media site has taken off. Even though Twitter's sort of falling apart, it's definitely changed. I can definitely tell you that. The layout changes. It pushes different stuff that I'm just not interested into my feed. There's huge problems, but I just haven't found any competitor that does sort of the same thing and does it well. So that's a little frustrating, but still out there looking, I guess. That's all I can say. Still out there looking. Was there any comic book news of the week that I missed, folks? Did I miss anything big? I don't think I did. I think I talked about all the big stuff. I know I had fun. I know I'm hungry. I grabbed myself the Comic Tropes account name on each of those, Samuel, Mastodon, and Hive. But I just don't think it has enough people on it to sort of work properly yet. I don't know. I want it to work. I want options. But for me, anyway, it wasn't really there yet. Maybe I'm being a snob. I don't think so, though. Yeah, we did it like 2 weeks ago. It was coming out while I was doing the live show, and so we did sort of talk about it. It's too bad that Jason Pearson passed away. He was talented. It's clear that like I wasn't the only one that thought that he had issues, because even the people that loved him said that there were times where they just couldn't really get along with him and stuff, and had fights when they didn't even know what they were fighting about. So he was a guy that had some issues, and it's too bad. But he was definitely talented, and it's too bad that he passed away so young. That's for sure. I don't know what else I can say about it. It's too bad. Let's go back to MySpace. Yep. Sports tools. Thank you. Yeah, I did call them sports tools. James Gunn is supposed to make his DC announcements tomorrow. Well, if he does, then that's something that we can talk about on the show next week. That should be fun. People at any conventions that I plan on going to, and I was like, maybe New York Comic Con and maybe Emerald City Comic Con, and beyond that, I didn't have any that I was too confident about. But what about you all? Anybody out there have a convention that they definitely plan on attending this year? And if so, why? Is it like a guest? Is it panels? What is it? What's drawing you? Do they have just a great vendor selection, or I don't know? Tell me what makes you go to a convention. I'd be curious about that. I'm sure he used a goalie stick. Yeah. Small local cons. Mm-hmm. Fan Expo Vancouver. Yeah, I didn't love that one, but if it was super close, I'd consider going. So, but I didn't love that one, Randy. There just weren't that many comic book vendors there. What about the Steranko tweet I reposted? Oh my god, that was pretty bonkers. Yeah, give me a sec. Okay, give me a sec. I can show that. Jim Steranko is, like he's full QAnon, down the rabbit hole, like, as far right wing as you can possibly get. Like he's really into the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. He posted something though that even for him, even being that sort of unhinged, was pretty over the top. Pretty over the top. And I had to like share it. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick. It might take me a minute. See if he still has it up. Maybe he pulled it down. That's always possible. Huh. Oh, yep. No, he still has it up. Okay. So I'll show it. Give me a sec. How do I do this? Present. There. So this is Jim Steranko's own words. He says, based on filmed events, sure, Jim, the USA is being directed by George Soros, the Chinese monarchy, who created the COVID plague to infect and destroy America with Fauci's aid. And Mexican drug dealers who could not have flooded the country with fentanyl without government cooperation. 3 exclamation points. I mean, that wraps together a lot of conspiracy theories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, five conspiracy theories in one sentence. Like, way to go, Jim. That's got to be a record. It hurts to see somebody that, you know, you admire their work just kind of lose their mind. This is like, you know, your uncle or grandpa has watched too much Newsmax or something, because that's just a lot. That is just a lot. You don't know what to make of any of that. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Right. He forgot 5G, and it was all made possible by the flatness of the earth. Exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. Doug Tenaple is also, I agree. I discovered like Doug's views early on because Creature Tech was an early comic he made that was very entertaining, very entertaining. Well, a friend of mine, Nate Belgard, who I'd mentioned earlier, drew some fan art of it, and he was hosting it on DeviantArt. Well, another friend sent him a link to that image, and he was like, how dare anybody use something called DeviantArt? This was before DeviantArt was well known. It was like brand new. And he goes, nobody should be proud of deviancy. And he like went on a pretty unhinged there. Yeah. You can take his comics work. You can't take his comics work away from him. Right. He may be a kook, but he's still a grandmaster of comics. Still scary, though. Yeah. It's scary because he definitely has fans that he's probably pushing towards believing some of this stuff. And I'll just say, no matter what I tend to say, be critical. You know, learn what you can trust and what you can't. It's good to be skeptical. It's also not good to not trust anything. You know, you if like understand, I don't know, the scientific method or something, then you can understand science without understanding the physics of everything, right? Maybe Steranko is making a new comic. Pretty sure he's not. Frank has mellowed out quite a bit. I think that he went through some personal trouble, but anyway. I don't want to cancel anybody. That's not my thing. But no, you're right that if he's not making comics, you can't really cancel him. But yeah. I seriously never knew Steranko endorsed nutty conspiracy theories. I saw him at Big AppleCon last year. He had a charismatic, fun personality full of energy, but he didn't give that vibe. He's very different on Twitter than he is in person. Yeah. Saw him at a con last year talking to fans as if he was God Almighty. Well, he's earned some love and respect from fans for his comic work, so I won't begrudge him that. I get that it's a lot, but also to throw it all away as nonsense without doing any actual research is just as crazy. Okay. Let's see. Do I carry around a paste pot everywhere? Yep. I've always got my paste pot with me in case I bump into Kevin Feige on the street and I go, Kevin, good news. I'm about to make you several more million that you didn't have before when you hire me as Paste Pot Pete in the MCU. Trust me, this is a great idea. It's what people want. It's what people want. Yes, the milk and cheese things that I was talking about absolutely sold out. These things sell out really fast, but every once in a while they do small drops. So either bookmark the site or follow Evan Dorkin on Twitter, and maybe you'll get a notification when they go for sale. Yo, look at this. John, thank you. Get you and the lady some tacos, or at least some good pork green chili. Ooh, both sound good. Thanks for your presence in the community and in comic-loving lives. All hail Tropes Nation. Good night, troopers. Thank you so much. That's so positive. yeah, if you haven't had a chance, I think that like the latest episode of Comic Tropes was a pretty fun one, taking a look at Thunderbolts and why the original run by Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley was definitely something special. I think it was pretty special. I think it was a highlight within Marvel in 97 to 2000. I think that was one of their stronger comics for sure, and I argue my case for it. And I think it's a fun episode. I need to do something a little lighter because Guardians of the Galaxy I talked about, but I was talking about like about a 6-year stretch, a lot of comics to go through and gather images for. Very time consuming editing for that. And then following that up with like about a 3-year run on talking about Thunderbolts. That was a lot to digest as well. So probably my next episode, I'm looking at like a crazy Golden Age character, I think, because I think that those are sometimes a little less time consuming. I think that's what I'll do next. And I've got like a bunch of comics here that I'm looking at. Like I want to do some older stuff. I want to do some indie stuff, and I want to do some foreign stuff. So I've got ideas. They're all sort of being developed at once. Hopefully I can get that done pretty soon. I think that I'm done. I didn't quite finish it, but there's my Casey Jones for the evening. Maybe I'll just at least finish this shoe because that's not asking much. That's not a huge, heavy lift. I'm pretending that he has Velcro high tops, by the way. Just felt era appropriate to Casey. Velcro high tops. They were a thing. And if you didn't have them, I feel for you. I had Velcro high tops. I had Velcro high tops with Reebok pump action, just to be clear. No, you just pay puppy. I didn't dress up or anything. Do the first 12 issues of Vendetti's Hawkman. Brilliant stuff that more should know about. I didn't read it, so noted. Golden Age Daredevil. Yep. Interesting topic. Yep. I got a lot of ideas, just to be clear, but Chris is so cool. Don't know about that, but I love comics and I love talking about them with you folks. Boy, does this shirt, I don't know if it's flattering or if it makes me look fat. I really don't know. I don't know. Glad you finally learned how to tie laces. I always knew how to tie laces. From the day I was 19, I've been able to tie laces. Jerk. Is Chip Zdarsky a creator you'd make a video on? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was giving a little thought to maybe covering sex criminals, but we'll see. The Illuminati invented Velcro. I'm through the looking glass here. Jim Steranko, is that you in disguise? It makes you look like... I'm pretty sure that Kirk never had a beard. It makes me look like an engineer. I'll take it. Thank you. Chris is rather snarky tonight. I should probably be snarkier because that's more accurate to me. I'm a bit of a wise ass. And I do this show and I worry about going too far, but maybe I'm not even going even a little bit. I don't know. It makes me look enterprising. Good one. I appreciate that. James Stewart, bad news is I'm in quarantine with COVID. Silver lining, I got to read comics all day and watch your stream live. Also, just mild symptoms. Feel better, James. We're all pulling for you. We're all pulling for you. I hear the cats. I'm going to go play with my cats a little bit and get some dinner and bring the silvery, shiny comic book upstairs because my wife wants to see it. Right, Chrissy? You wanted to see the shiny comic? Oh, this shirt is yellow. Enough said. Chrissy likes the color yellow. All right. But let's end there. Let's end on my wife giving me a compliment. I think that is a very positive place to end. Folks, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun. So I hope you had some fun too. We will be back next week with some more comic book news and reviews. I'm not 100% sure what comics are coming out this week off the top of my head. I'm curious now, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I'm also gonna get out another Comic Tropes episode on the weekend. I think I've got a good bit of momentum here, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it together. Thank you so much for joining. If you get a chance, definitely hit like and subscribe. Feel free to share this with someone. This channel is growing, grows very slowly, but you know what? It means every single viewer that subscribes. I kind of feel that it's fun to sort of start over with a channel and grow it again. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Thanks, everyone. Keep reading comics. Double salute to end the night. Just for you. I appreciate you. Take care of each other. Bye.